Hi, I'm Rick Reef. Welcome to SoCal Insider. Recording devices on patrol cars are supposed to protect the public and the cops. Video and audio can help when there are allegations of excessive force, for example, which is why a lot of people are upset and demanding answers after revelations in the LA Times that some police officers dismantled dozens of patrol car antennas so they wouldn't be monitored. And if the Big Apple's going to poach on Hollywood's turf and grab movie and TV production, well, turnabout's fair play. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti wants The Late Show to move here. Does this script have a happy ending? We'll discuss. But first, call it a waste war, trash tussle, whatever. There's a battle going on over how to pick up trash. David Nazar, what's the story?
Rick, proponents are calling it a next step forward in the green revolution. Detractors say it's a step backwards to political cronyism. We're talking about the Los Angeles City Council just voting to adopt a new policy, the Zero Waste LA exclusive franchise system. Trash day in LA. Any Angelina knows it's not a pretty sight. Trash trucks crisscrossing the city, trash containers everywhere you look, bottlenecked traffic, no parking zones. You get the picture. A city of millions is naturally going to produce millions of tons of trash a year. Trash that each week gets sent to landfills that are maxed out and overrun. Well, LA officials are looking to clean up the city with their new Zero Waste LA program, a city waste collection system that will basically divide Los Angeles's multifamily residential and commercial areas into 11 zones, each to be serviced by an exclusive trash hauler. City leaders say this will reduce pollution, increase efficiency, improve safety conditions for the trash haulers, and give them better paying jobs at the same time. And officials say even more importantly, the new policy will dramatically reduce dependence on landfills over the next decade. The hope is to divert about 90% of landfill waste into recycling programs and composting, things like that. This idea actually dates back to about 2010. It was the brainchild of a coalition called Don't Waste LA, led by the organization LANE, the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. The coalition consists of environmental and community groups like the Sierra Club and the National Resources Defense Council, and labor groups like LANE and the Teamsters. After LANE and the coalition advocated for the new policy, city leaders, including Councilman Jose Huizar, Councilman Paul Koretz, and then Councilman Eric Garcetti, took it from there. Today, LANE is calling the city's new measure a landmark environmental victory.
There's a really serious environmental crisis in the waste and recycling industry. Our city throws away nearly 2 million tons of trash every year, and we're literally running out of space to throw our trash in. We have 2 primary landfills where we dispose of our trash, and one in fact closed last year, the Puente Hills landfill. We only have one left at Sunshine Canyon. They're going to be at capacity at 2035, and we really need to find a solution now as to how to recycle and not depend on landfills.
Is this really a recycling and an environmental issue, or is this a labor issue?
It is both. You know, we want to make sure that we recycle, that, you know, apartment owners, apartment buildings, and businesses have the opportunity to recycle, since over 2/3 of the trash that comes from the city of LA comes from businesses and apartments. But also we want to make sure that the conditions that the workers are in are adequate. Currently, it really is sort of a race to the bottom. There's hundreds of companies that are operating in any given neighborhood with very little standards, and often the trucks are not well maintained. So we want to make sure that the truck drivers who collect our trash don't have to worry about their trucks breaking down. And for the workers who have to sort through our trash, when trash is improperly disposed of, they're exposed to really dangerous materials, hazardous materials, or oftentimes maybe even dead animals or dead bodies.
Sometimes the problem is anytime you talk union or Teamsters, some folks in LA get a bit concerned. We've got the DWP union mired in controversy. We've got the LAUSD and the teachers union mired in controversy. Now you've got the Teamsters and the union trying to hone in on the trash workers. Do you see a problem there?
This issue is about addressing an environmental crisis here in Los Angeles. The reason why the Teamsters are involved in our campaign is because they also see that we need to address climate change. We need to address the environmental issues that are facing all major urban areas.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
That's Kobe King. King is the chair of VICA, the Valley Industry Commerce Association. VICA is sort of like a chamber of commerce with a membership of hundreds of businesses in the San Fernando Valley and other parts of Los Angeles. This pro-business advocacy group claims the Zero Waste LA program is going to destroy the small waste haulers, whereby creating a monopoly in the process with the new exclusive franchise system. King says the smaller businesses won't be able to competitively bid for one of the new 11 LA trash zones. And he also says there will be a tremendous decrease in the quality of trash service for Angelenos.
A non-exclusive zone, which actually makes more sense for the city for a variety of reasons, then they still impose all the same franchise restrictions. They still generate revenue, they still impose new worker safety standards, and they still impose new environmental standards, but they allow the competitive nature of today's system to work as well. So one of the reasons that that is so important is that today in Los Angeles we probably have over 100 different haulers, many of whom are based in the city of Los Angeles, employ people in the city of Los Angeles. If they go to this exclusive zone, and if the way it's executed, the way they have designed it, you could end up with 1 or 2 or 3 companies, which may or may not be based here in the city of Los Angeles, taking over all the zones, literally putting out dozens, if not more than 100 different companies and potentially thousands of LA workers. Some have said that this is simply an effort by union leaders to reserve these jobs for companies that are unionized.
Do you believe that that's part of the case, that the union is trying to make a grab for these workers?
Well, since some of the main proponents of the exclusive franchise system have been organizations like Lane and the Teamsters, I think it's a fairly logical conclusion that you could make.
No, that's not a logical conclusion, says Councilman Jose Huizar. Huizar says it's simply about giving LA a better trash system.
Zero Waste LA is an opportunity for the city of Los Angeles to increase its recycling goals and to also allow for more certainty in the pickup of waste in our multifamily units and also our commercial operators, so that we, number one, protect our environment, 2, provide an opportunity for Angelenos to have more consistency in this, and at the end of the day, it will provide us as the city of Los Angeles leading the way in being environmentally friendly and also leading the way in what's possible in waste, haul, and pickup. What we're doing is allowing the business owners, the operators, to evaluate for themselves what makes better business sense for them. And going union is one option.
There's a real danger in narrowing a city of 4 million people and I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of businesses down to only 11 zones and then giving a monopoly.
Well, bad news for Kobe King, VICA, and other opponents of this proposal. Zero Waste LA has just passed the council handily, 9-1, and Mayor Garcetti is about to sign it into law. In fact, the mayor sent us a statement saying he's proud to have been an early leader in the campaign to make Los Angeles the zero waste capital of the nation. And Rick, Garcetti went on to say that this is one of the most ambitious programs of its kind in the world and will provide clean air, good jobs, and recycling for all. That's what the mayor says.
Okay, David, let's just specify again that if you live in a single-family home or a duplex, you're not affected by this. City crews will continue to pick up your trash. Okay, now I understand that the one no vote on the council was Bernard Parks from South LA, the former police chief. I gather he has a different take on this program.
Yeah, different take. Well, that might be just an understatement. I spoke to the councilman over the phone. Parks says he doesn't even like the name Zero Waste. Parks says it really misrepresents, Rick, what's actually going on here. He tells me the program is just an obvious attempt to unionize the trash industry in LA. Parks said that this is exactly what folks are talking about. You know, we've heard it all the time when they say LA is anti-business, LA is helping the big unions at the expense of the small business owner. Well, Parks also says all this green talk, well, he says it's just nonsense. He contends that things like the number of truck trips and recycling requirements, they all could have been handled without resorting to this exclusive contract. And he says the city is basically, Rick, interfering with the free market. And now, look, if you're a business owner or apartment building owner, he says you can no longer negotiate with and hire the hauler that you believe can best serve you.
Other than that, he's fine with this program, right?
Oh yeah, he says it's a great program.
All right, finally, David, I'm wondering about the money in all this trash. For example, what will this mean for the prices that a building owner, apartment owner has to pay for trash pickup? And I assume the city is going to be collecting franchise fees from all of this.
Yeah, actually, you're right, because city officials are estimating, I want to say that the zero waste is going to bring something like $25 to $30 million a year, although, of course, some of that will offset the cost of overseeing the program, overhead and whatnot. As for what folks will pay for trash pickup, well, officials are telling me they really don't know as of yet. This is still a work in progress. All they do say is that some folks' prices, what's on their bills, that could increase. Some of the bills could possibly decrease.
That's comforting. Okay, anyway, thanks, David. And now, joining me to discuss trash, cops, and showbiz, the Consider This panel. Commentator, community activist, and former executive director of the LA Human Relations Commission, Joe Hicks. And from the LA-based website CityWatch, Jack Humphreville. Welcome, gentlemen. Jack, what do you make of all this with the trash?
Well, the exclusive trash franchise, the way it's constructed, is probably the best system campaign contributions could possibly buy. It's going to result in, significant costs, additional costs estimated to be about 40 to 50% more over once this thing is implemented. That's another $150 million a year that, business owners and apartment owners are going to have to, absorb, and which we will then absorb ourselves. I think another scary part of it is that the city is going to run this thing. So, they're going to run these monopolies. And I don't know about you, but I think the city has a hard time even running a garage, more or less a $250 million operation. I mean, it's going to be politicized. You can just, well, you saw Jose Huizar in David's excellent report. He'll be sticking his nose into everything, as well as all these other guys. And I hate to think all the money that's going to be flowing to the city council.
When you reference campaign contributions, maybe for some viewers, what do you mean? Why would this system lead to campaign contributions?
Well, I think interested bidders, if you will, probably will want to influence some of the decision makers on the city council. Money makes a lot of friends.
All right, so you have more campaign money, more lobbyists running around, all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Joe, what's your take?
I love. It almost sounds like Obamacare here. Well, we don't know what it's going to cost right now. It's a work in progress. We'll tell you later down the road what it's going to cost these independent people trying to get their trash picked up. So, but I'm also struck by kind of the political tone of this thing. We hear the representative from Lane. We obviously got the unions heavily involved here. There's a real agenda here. I tried to count all the little cause and issues here. Well, there's an environment. There's climate change that magically this is gonna handle. It's worker safety. I mean, she was ticking off all these things. I'm going, wait a minute. This is about trash. And the city is certainly not going to reduce the amount of trash. We're claiming it's going to reduce waste. How's that going to happen?
Okay,
People are still going to be eliminating the same amounts of things. And one more thing. I was struck by something that was said about this. Well, today, trash collection is like the Wild Wild West in L.A. And I'm thinking, and I'm sure your viewers might say, wait a minute, when I drive around, Southern California, I'm not struck by that kind of topsy-turvy, hurly-burly of just trucks rushing down the freeway, rolling over people, chaos out there. Looks pretty organized, frankly, right now. What's wrong with the world of competition here?
Okay, Joe, on the other hand, I don't think anybody thinks the traffic situation is good. There's lots of congestion, there's lots of pollution, and let's take a look from the city standpoint. They're saying that, we're under mandates to clean up the air, with dozens of different little haulers running around. That's causing pollution. Isn't there an argument to be made that we want to that it would be more efficient if you got an exclusive franchise? You're certainly going to reduce truck trips. You're not going to have multiple numbers of trucks going over the same route. So I mean, don't they have a point? And they're not the only city that does it. I believe New York has districts. I think that Chicago has districts now. There are some some of the smaller cities in LA County, have exclusive franchises. In Orange County, there's some. Anaheim has an exclusive. Irvine doesn't. But
Sure.
So what do you say to that? That maybe from an efficiency standpoint, Joe, that this is a good idea.
Well, I would argue, and I think Jack Jack, you might have looked at this a little bit more than I have over the years. You know, and by the way, I think David's piece was excellent because I think it did balance the various contending views on this very, very well. So I really appreciate his piece for doing that. But again, I'm thinking of all the issues in LA that need to be contended over and dealt with and reformed. This issue of trash wasn't, I don't think, high on anybody's radar screen. So I guess my argument is, again, one of leadership. It's like, what are these people directing themselves to? This is an issue that jumped out. This is clearly a politically motivated and designed thing here that is really the product of activists and the unions.
Okay, Jack.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The city has prided itself on having the best diversion rate for trash in the entire country. Any large city, we're far, far ahead of everybody, and all of a sudden our diversion rate's an issue. The other thing here is that the city administrative officer, Miguel Santana, you know, supported a non-exclusive franchise where I could bid against you and you can bid against me, so you're not going to have the monopolistic pricing that you're going to have before. Needless to say, Miguel's report was met with a dull thud. At best.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it plays out, gentlemen. All right, let's go to another topic. This story that the LA Times has broken on police officers in Los Angeles dismantling sound equipment that makes it much harder for them to be monitored. Now, what's interesting, a couple of things. First, that the cops did this. About 50 cars apparently were tampered with and the sound devices were disabled. And also there talk that the chief and other top officers did not alert the civilian commission in any kind of a timely manner. Now there's some talk that the chairman of the commission was alerted, but he didn't share it with the rest of the commission. In either case, the civilian commission wasn't let in when it was discovered. There was no investigation. They basically told the cops, knock it off, don't do it anymore. And that was it. What do you make of this, Joe?
Well, I guess I don't need to make a secret of this, that I've not been a big fan of Beck as a police chief. I just don't think he's brought the kind of leadership after Bratton, who brought a certain level of sophistication to the job, really made some incredible inroads into a lot of parts of the community that had felt, I hate to use this word, underserved. But nonetheless, he did a really good job of attending to the kinds of things that often separated law enforcement from communities. Charlie Beck has been a different kind of animal. You know, he doesn't have the necessary political sophistication that Beck had, and he stumbles often. Here's a guy ready to make a claim that he needs to be re-upped for a second term, and he's stumbling, and as someone recently wrote, has kind of shot himself in the foot here in two successive issues here. For him to say, it's not a big deal, because frankly, and I'm going to sort of argue against myself here, what these cameras did, these video devices did, was act as protection for cops, because if the recording device is recording what they've done, you can't say, I got abused by this cop, he treated me horribly, and he rolled back the video and says, we did everything right. Yeah. But on the other hand, this is the only profession I'm aware of where you've constantly got a camera looking over your shoulder all the time as you go about your work. Sometimes police can be like sausage making, or democracy. It ain't pretty. You don't want to be there seeing it made, but you know the outcome is generally an okay
just one
product.
correction. I think it's it was audio equipment and not video equipment that they actually tampered with. In this case, and Jack, though, you know, why would they do that? I mean, isn't that not only the why, but then why wouldn't they alert the commission for Chief Beck to say, oh well, I didn't think it was that big a deal or whatever,
Well, I think Beck blew it. He told Soboroff a while ago that
Soboroff is the chairman of the
police commission. He told Soboroff that there was an issue. When he first learned of this issue, he should have gone and smacked over the head the cops that were doing this. They say, hey guys, this is not acceptable behavior. And then it went on, so as opposed to having one cop car or two cop cars, you now have 50, and then it makes the front page of the Times. He really blew this one.
Well, but his argument is that he couldn't tell who had done it.
Yeah, but that's after
you got difficult to find out.
Isn't it a little unsettling? These are the guys that investigate murders and crimes.
Exactly.
And for him to say, "Oh, there's just all these guys were involved. How could we figure it out?"
Very odd argument for a police chief to be making.
Yeah, but when the first one happens, you say, "Hey, Rick, you know what's happened to your cop car?" Then you go after him. You say, "I don't want you dismantling it." So the message goes out on the first or second car that this is not acceptable behavior. So then you're not going to have 50 cop cars that are down.
Yeah.
I think there's one other thought on this is I think there's a little cop bashing going on here. I mean, anytime the LAPD steps out of line, it's on the front page of the paper. I think our boys in blue. I don't know if that's a New York term or not. I think they do a very good job. I'm very happy with the department, with our police department. Other than I may have a few issues with their pension plan.
But you see, I guess my argument would be you can't have a guy at the top of this pyramid,
Absolutely.
the chief, stumbling like this and having cops dismantling equipment in their cars for whatever the reason and whatever they are, and then you don't say, wait a minute, from the message from the top is, you guys can't do that. The equipment is there. What if they were disabling other devices in their cars?
Well, I'm just wondering,
can't
sometimes,
have
I'm
that.
not saying this is the case, we're going to find out more, but as I read it, I was wondering if maybe it wasn't quite as sinister as it seemed. In other words, they weren't disabling this equipment because they wanted to hide brutality. They disable it because they just didn't want their private conversations listened into. We're going to say something about the chief or something. I don't want that recorded. Do you think that?
Well,
I'm just thinking that might have been it. And that doesn't make it right.
That was my point about sausage making, because often interaction between citizens and police isn't the prettiest thing in the world. Nonetheless, it's the job of the police chief to investigate them. Well, why were they dismantling? Let's do an investigation to find out some answers can be given that make sense.
I think now we're going to see the investigation that didn't happen. Anyway, Jack, I wanted to ask, get your take on the fact that, years ago, Johnny Carson, when he moved the Tonight Show to LA back in 1972, it changed the landscape. LA had arrived. It was the center of the universe. Jimmy Fallon takes over the Tonight Show, and he moved it back this year. Now, Mayor Eric Garcetti is saying, writes a letter to Les Moonves, the chief of CBS, saying when Letterman leads the Late Show, bring the Late Show to L.A. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting. One of the things that I think is interesting about it is this is a regional issue. It's just not an L.A. issue. I think Johnny Carson was in beautiful downtown Burbank, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we have a regional issue here, and I think Eric deserves to be commended for stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, come on, come on down, come back to L.A. I think the biggest problem we're going to have is that I think New York's going to throw a lot of money at the successor to Letterman, and we're not going to be able to compete. It's this runaway production business where everybody else has tons of dough, whether it's in Georgia or South Carolina or Connecticut. They're just tossing money at these guys, and we don't have the dough to do it. Plus, it's a state issue, not a city issue.
But the bigger picture here is why isn't LA getting the kind of share of the entertainment it used to set up shop here in LA? People are filming all around the country because those city governments or whoever the institutions are have made it better for them, giving up tax and concessions, whatever, to get them to do that there. So the real issue here, and it's interesting, de Blasio, I think,
we got 10 seconds.
Has the inside track here. He picks up the phone and calls Moonves. Garcetti writes him a letter.
Good point.
So
Good
I think
point.
we see who's got the inside track.
Yes. Whatever happened to email? You can watch this show and past shows at rickreef.com. Segments of the show can also be viewed at pbssocal.org. My guests have been Joe Hicks and Jack Humphreville. And thanks to our field guests, Jackie Cornejo, Kobe King, and Jose Huizar. Of course, thank you for watching. We'll see you again on SoCal Insider.
SoCal Insider with Rick Reef is brought to you by the following. 5 Point Communities is a proud sponsor of PBS SoCal. 5 Point Communities is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. More information available at www.fivepointcommunities.com. Snell & Wilmer is a full-service business law firm with more than 400 attorneys in Orange County, Los Angeles, and throughout the West. On the web at swlaw.com. Snell & Wilmer. Straight talk, sound counsel. Practical solutions.
Relief Pod's latest generation of safety kits now go everywhere you go. Relief Pod's organized, color-coded, and compact safety kits keep first aid and emergency items accessible for a safe lifestyle every day. Relief Pod. Live ready.
A healthy future for you, your family, and your business is why Memorial Care Health System transformed healthcare. Our hospitals, physicians, and outpatient centers keep patients healthy and care for them when they're not. Memorial Care, one healthcare system leading the way.
Our innovations in medical imaging are mapping the future of healthcare. When we started, I believed we could compete with these giants in this industry. City National believes in ICRCO, and that's what makes the relationship work. City National is the way up for our business.